Welcome to the Refurbishment Mastery podcast with me, Martin Rapley. If you're a property investor who is worried about paying too much for your next property, concerned that you don't know how to manage a refurb, or scared that you will be ripped off by a builder, then this is for you. In this podcast, I share over 30 years of experience of managing refurbishments and conversions to help you make more profit, save your time, and ultimately enjoy the process. On with the podcast. In this episode, I'm going to explain to you how you can negotiate with builders to hopefully bring the prices down a little. Now, I'm doing this from the context of having been that builder for a long time. Even though I wasn't the tradesman, I was managing these projects for builders, and I was often the first person that clients called to negotiate with. And some of them were really good and as a result probably successful, and some of them were absolutely appalling and as a result probably not successful in reducing the prices. I've also then worked on the other side. I've managed my own projects, so I've negotiated with builders, and I've managed hundreds of projects for clients as well, and therefore negotiated bit with builders on that basis as well. So this is for a whole context of looking at things from both sides. And the thing that used to really wind me up when I was the surveyor, when I was the estimator for the builder, was clients that rang us and said, I need a discount. That was really not the right kind of context for me. My standard response was, look, you sent me all of the details for this project. You asked me to give you my best price because you told me that we were in competition. How could I give you my best price and then suddenly you ask me for more saving? There isn't any more saving there. So we need to come away from this concept that we need a saving across the board. That is where a lot of builders won't really be interested in talking to you. So what we need to do is find another way of getting discounts without just saying, oh, well, if you take 2% off, I'll give you the project. Because the good builders, the switched on builders, much like we were, will say, well, there is nothing more because I gave you my best price because I knew I was in competition and I wanted to win the work. So the way to facilitate a reduction in prices is not to ask for a saving across the board. You need to focus in on individual elements of the price. And the best way to start here is by having multiple prices from multiple contractors. I would set them all out in Excel, and I would look. I'd look at the description on one side. I'd look across the column against the various different builders where we've got builders' prices in each column. And I would look for prices that stand out as perhaps being inconsistent with the other contractors. So, for instance, we've got an item that might say, new central heating system, new hot water and central heating system. And builders will have priced that item. And it might be that one builder's priced it at £10,000, another one's at 9,500, another one's perhaps £9,000, and one of them has actually priced it at, say, £15,000. Now, assuming that we're interested in working with the one that's £15,000, let's say generally his prices are pretty good, but this one item is disproportionately high, then the conversation I'd have with that builder would be very much what I've just explained. We've got 4 prices for this central heating element. All of the other builders seem to be somewhere around about £9,000. Yours looks significantly higher. Could you go back to your plumber, or could you talk to your plumber and just double check that they haven't made a mistake in that particular price? So now we're not asking for a discount. We're just asking them to double check that they haven't made a mistake. This element, by the way, in this instance, isn't even the builder. This is the builder's contractor. And so the builder will go back to his contractor and he'll have a similar conversation. And he will infer that potentially, if this price can be reduced, they can win the work. You won't necessarily have told him this at this point, but he will infer that to his contractor. His plumbing contractor will take a look at it. Maybe the plumber looks at it and says, "Oh, my word, yeah, I have made a bit of a slip up. I've misunderstood what's needed. I've miscounted something. I've got a really bad price for one or two of the products." And they might be able to reduce it. They may not be able to reduce it, but they might be able to reduce it. And the builder will come back to you and say, actually, I've looked at it with my plumber. My plumber can take £2,500 off. You don't necessarily expect it to come down to the same base level as the other contractors have quoted, but you may well get some kind of discount off. Now, at this point, the builder has offered you a discount. You actually haven't asked for a discount. All you've done is ask for the builder to double check that they've got that price right, because it seems disproportionately high in comparison with the other contractors you've got. And the contractor has now offered you a reduction on their terms. They might even have realised that there was a £5,000 reduction, and they've just offered you two and a half. Well, that's entirely for that's their decision, effectively, because they still believe that they're in competition. So they'll give back what they believe is a fair amount for that particular item. Now, within the bigger the projects are, and the more prices you've got, you may find that there's two or three items within some builders' prices that will, where you can have this same kind of conversation. And this really comes back from your meeting with the contractors over the duration of the tender process and your interaction with the contractors. It may well be that there's one contractor that you really wanted to work with, but their price is just a little bit on the high side. And your thoughts are, well, if I can bring their price down, then I really want to work with them. They are the builder I want to work with. I just need to get their price down because they are higher than the others. And it might be that you can just talk about a couple of these items. It might be that you've already selected the contractor you want, and their price is pretty good, but there could still be one or two items where you could have that same kind of conversation, and you can bring them down even more. But again, the concept is we're not just asking for a saving, we're asking them to look at one or two elements, maybe two or three elements in their price where they look disproportionately higher than the others. Now, some builders will come back and say, actually, we've gone through it, we can't change it. The reason it's this expensive is XYZ. And you'll get some kind of explanation. And it may be that some of the other contractors actually haven't understood that. And you might want to double check that. But you may then be able to have a conversation with the builder and say, "Oh, I didn't realise it was so expensive to do it this way round. Is there a better way of doing it?" And some builders will come back and say, "Well, yeah, we wouldn't normally do it this way round. We'd normally do it this way round, and that we can build it cheaper for you that way round." Now, again, you've not asked for a discount there. You've just asked the builder for their expertise, and builders always like to give their expertise. And from that, they may well give you a saving as well. And again, this is them giving you the saving rather than you actually asking for the saving. So discounts come and negotiation on prices come from focusing on individual elements. Ignore this whole thing. We've got to get 2.5% off the bottom line. And what you'll find is some of these items will lead you to what could be quite a significant discount because there is an error in there. And I've seen some significant price reductions just by having these kind of conversations, because you get to a feel that some builders haven't fully understood things properly. And you've got to, and this comes with experience to a certain extent, when they say, "Oh, actually we could build this slightly differently because of this," you may then be able to say, "Well, surely that also impacts on this price over here. Can you have a look at that as well now?" So, we could build it differently, so there's less partitions. Well, that's great. Is there also a saving on the plastering now? And is there a saving on on the skirting boards or something else like that. So that will come with experience, but you can just look for things that give savings. Just jumping in to make sure that you have everything you need. Now, in a number of these podcasts, you would have heard me talk about my community, and I want to ensure that you know how you can join that community. Obviously, within these podcasts, there's a limit to the detail I can go into the recording, and of course, a lot of things are very generic. So, what if you had access to join me on a Zoom call for 90 minutes every single week in a group coaching environment? You could get your questions answered whenever they come up and learn from other members' questions. Plus, you also get 10 hours of training videos, an HMO refurbishment case study, some sample documents and checklists that will help you run your projects far more effectively. Membership of my community is just £89 a month. You get the first month free, and you can also cancel anytime after that. Plus, as a listener of this podcast, there's a promo code to help you save £20 every single month that you remain a member. So just make a note of VIP discount 20, VIP discount 20, all in capital letters, and put that into the checkout. You'll find the checkout on my website, www.refurbishmentmastery.com. Scroll down the page, you'll find the link for the Project Management Accelerator. Use the promo code VIP discount 20 and you'll be signed up at just £69 a month. I look forward to seeing you in that community very, very soon. Now back to the podcast. Some builders will also come back and say, actually, that price is quite high, but we've included another item in it. And notice it on page 6 where it's got perhaps, you've asked them to price for the installation of the bathroom. You might find that they've written included there, and actually all of that work is included in the price above. And that's probably because they've approached a plumber for an all-inclusive package. The plumber's given them a lump sum and they've just put that one price against one item. In which case you might find that when you compare like for like with the other builders, that there isn't actually a saving here. So the way we get discounts, the way we get savings on our prices is by talking, by negotiating, by asking good questions with a view that we can encourage the builders to go and look at elements of their project. Now, when you're talking to contractors, you always want to infer that you're talking to more than one contractor, even if you are only talking to one contractor. I may well say, thanks very much for your price. I've got multiple prices in. You're one of two that I just want to get clarity, or you're one of two or three. Sometimes I'll say, you're one of three. I just want to get clarity that you're all pricing on the same basis. You've all understood it correctly. And what I will try and do is ask them a number of questions. Some of those questions may be obvious from the way they've priced, but what I'm saying is I want to clarify. I want to know that I'm comparing like for like. So I may ask them some questions about to confirm some basics, like perhaps their start date, that they've understood that there's reduced VAT, that they've understood there's phasing, that they know some basics about the project. So I'll ask them some questions like that, and then I'll throw in a couple to do with their price, and I might even say, I notice you've got included against item 23. Is that included in item 16? I might even put that in because that shows that I'm acknowledging the way they've priced their project. And then I might also put in there, and by the way, can you have a look at item 18, because your figure here looks disproportionately high to the others. Now, if I'm concerned, I might also talk about item 6, where they are disproportionately low, because I don't want to be engaging with a contractor that's priced that's too low. But I will start the whole thing saying I am talking to a few contractors, 2 contractors. I'll never let them know they've got it, because any changes at this point, they will believe they are close, but they haven't secured the project yet. So they're not going to go wild with their changes. And that item where they were a bit on the low side they may come back and say, actually, we've looked at that again. We probably are a little bit on the low side, but we believe that we can do the project for the bottom line figure. So we're happy to stick with our price. That's a good thing to hear. It's good to acknowledge that sometimes they don't always get the price right first time. Others will come back and say, actually, we have messed that up. I do need to add a little bit in. But because they think they're still in competition, they'll just add in the absolute bare minimum they feel they can get away with. And then on the other side, where there's some prices that you may flag up as being a little bit on the high side, they will do their best to reduce the price as much as they possibly can because they believe that they're in competition and they believe that they will secure the project if they can bring their price down a little. Now, this is how I negotiate projects when I'm actually only talking to one contractor as well. So I do a lot of work. I've used over the years. I've only used in my own projects a handful of different contractors, and there's two of them that have probably had, probably nearly 60-70% between the two of them, or so, maybe even more than that. And I will still send them the tender pack. I will still send them the schedule of works. I'll still ask their for their prices. Their price will come back, and then I will generally negotiate in this way with them as the one contractor. I'm prepared to pay a little bit of a premium to be working with a good contractor that I know can deliver good quality in a good time, and their prices are pretty good. Now, are they the cheapest? Maybe not. But if they believe they're in competition all of the time and they believe that I want to work with them and I negotiate a little bit harder with them to make sure that I can keep working with them, they're generally going to give me good prices. But I will always infer, even to them, that I'm just having a look at all the prices. And if I think a price is a bit on the high side, and I'm doing this from my experience, but I will go back to my original budget. And if I thought something was going to cost £10,000 to do, and they come in at 15, then I will ask them and I will dig a little bit deeper and I will go through the process I've just spoken about. So talk about items where you think they're a little bit high. Infer that you're talking to lots of contractors, ask them lots of questions, get them really engaged in the project, get them feeling like they're not that far away from securing the project. And then when you think that you've kind of got everything clear, one final question you can say to them is, okay, this all looks pretty good. We're going to, I would want to have a pre-start meeting with you next week just to double check everything and check that we're all back on the same page. And there's other podcasts about pre-start meetings. So I want to have a pre-start meeting with you next week. We're going to start on Monday, the whatever. Can you, on that basis, and on the basis that this is now a live project, can you just double check that there's no other flexibility in your price and that you're happy that this is your price? So I'm not asking for a discount. I'm just asking them to double check that on those terms, everything is good and they're ready to go. Now, I've had those conversations, and some builders have said, look, I can't actually start on that day. I couldn't start for another 2 weeks. I've got some other projects I need to finish up. Now, that's a good thing to find out because we don't want to be pushing them to start too early and perhaps that doesn't work. So I've had some of them say that actually, I tell you what, if you could put it off by 6 weeks, I could reduce the price more significantly. And then you can weigh up the pros and cons of doing that. So you're just this is this final catch-all that really we're not asking for a discount. We're just asking them to double check that on these terms, on the basis that we are ready to go, that they are giving me the absolute best price for what I need. So summary here is a lot of people, I know a lot of property investors are concerned about negotiating with builders. And it's definitely not the easiest thing. I've been doing it for so long that I've just worked out over the years how to negotiate. Because even when I was a builder, I was negotiating with tradesmen and subcontractors. So I was having this kind of conversation. And I was doing projects that were hundreds of thousands and sometimes even close to £1 million in value. So we had, some big, hefty packages, and hefty elements of work. It's definitely easier to negotiate prices when you've got bigger projects. Definitely easier to negotiate when you've got multiple contractors' prices in front of you, because you've got some benchmarks to work from. I would encourage you to not see this as a battle. Ultimately, if you've got your budget right in the first place, hopefully the builder's prices are pretty close. So you're not in a position where you're negotiating through desperation to get the prices down because the deal doesn't work otherwise. You're negotiating from the perspective that it would be great to save a few £1,000s if you can. And that will definitely put you into a stronger position, because to some extent builders sniff when you're desperate. And I'm saying this because I was on the other side, and I've had hundreds, if not thousands, of these conversations one way or the other in my career. So all the best with negotiating with builders. Go in positively, keep it all friendly, but keep it professional, and whatever you do, never ask for 2% across the board. You might find you can actually get more by having a more meaningful conversation. So all the best with that. Hopefully that just helps you save a little bit more money. That's what I'm here to do, and I look forward to catching up with you in another episode very, very soon.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. Please do like, share and leave a comment where you can. If you need any guidance or advice with anything to do with your refurbishments or conversions, then don't hesitate to reach out. You can book a free call with me by clicking on the link at the top of my website, refurbishmentmastery.com. There's other ways you can contact me in the show notes as well. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.